A high-profile elimination on the front, the son of a Russian general who shelled the Kherson region has been killed. War crimes in Pokrovsk. Russians shot and killed civilians. The Kremlin has rejected Trump's call to stop the war in Ukraine. Moscow is betting on lies. The propaganda budget will increase by a record 54%. A scam was uncovered in Germany. Hundreds of Hungarians pretended to be Ukrainian refugees. Russian drones have already reached Spain, while Estonia and Latvia are deporting Russians. Hello, my name is Yulia Kokhan, and right now, here are the top stories. But first, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose touch with you on YouTube. Ukrainian defenders have eliminated the son of a Russian general in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Vasily Marzoev, the son of General Arkady Marzoev, commander of Russia's 18th Combined Arms Army, has gone to join Kobzon's concert. It should be noted that Marzoev Sr. was involved in the shelling of civilian areas on the right bank of the Kherson region from January to October 2023, which resulted in the deaths of 113 people. More details about what is currently happening at the front can be found in our military review.
Russia is returning to mechanized assaults. The mass use of armored vehicles has been recorded in several sectors of the front at once, most of all in the Pokrovsk area. The Ukrainian armed forces decapitated an entire enemy battalion by striking their command post. Meanwhile, the Russians are still unsuccessfully trying to break through to their own near Dobropilya, suffering enormous losses in the process. Everything happening on the front today. Watch it right now. Military analysts on both sides of the front report that Russia has decided to return to the tactic of mechanized breakthroughs. In the past week alone, 3 such cases have already been recorded, and each time the Russian column was destroyed and their infantry failed to hold their positions. The latest attempt was no exception.
The Russians were detected and kept under surveillance, as reported on the channel, while strikes were simultaneously carried out on their equipment 20 kilometers from the front line. Visually, the columns didn't even reach the Ukrainian positions.
At the same time, the occupiers tried to take advantage of the weather conditions near Pokrovsk. Given the rain and fog, it's now harder for both sides to operate drones. And so, Russia decided to use this time to attempt a breakthrough with special equipment. Notably, the column was destroyed, and the surviving infantry scattered to the outskirts, after which our troops cleared them out on the front line.
Just in the past 24 hours, they've been trying to break into Pokrovsk itself. They even tried to show that they had made some progress somewhere, but we neutralized them. There have already been a full 18 hours of clearing operations across all sectors there. The attempt in the Volgograd direction was also unsuccessful, even though several units, so to speak, moved in there, trying to attack from different sides and already reporting that they had achieved some initial successes. In other words, we can see that we are effectively destroying all these advances.
At the same time, a column of armored vehicles tried to break through a bit north of Pokrovsk, heading toward Dobropilya. Russian units are still surrounded there, and in order not to lose these mini bridgeheads, they are still trying to send reinforcements to them. Russia made another push toward the village of Shakov. Spoiler, the vehicles never made it to the settlement.
Shakov is so important because a road runs through it that, in theory, could be used to supply the Russian troops trapped in the Dobropilya pocket. But everything became focused on Vladimirovka, which turned into a kill zone for Russian armored groups. As a result, the enemy, that is, Russia, concentrated large forces in a very limited area. That's why the defense forces fired at the Russians with everything they had: drones, artillery, and GMLRs.
At the same time, despite already having 3 failed attempts to break through with vehicles, analysts believe the Russians are unlikely to change this tactic. The main reason is the Russian command, which is directing the offensive in Donetsk region.
Let us recall that the Russian group is commanded by none other than the legendary Sukharkov Medov. If the general was recklessly sending columns to their doom near Vuhledar a couple of years ago, wrote the Z channel 2 Majors, and nothing was done about it, then it is highly likely that he will just as thoughtlessly send columns into new offensive sectors as well. 2 Majors writes.
Near Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region, the situation has managed to stabilize somewhat. Sabotage groups are currently unable to infiltrate the city from the northwestern outskirts. But in southern Ukraine, the situation, on the contrary, is escalating. According to the command, the enemy has regrouped there and is amassing forces near Kherson.
It is true that they are concentrating a certain number of assault groups in the Oleshki area in order to continue their offensive, and let's say to carry out more search and strike operations near the Antonivsky Islands. We have this information. In addition, the enemy is trying to improve the engineering and fortification of their positions where they are currently entrenched. That is, on the left bank, they are no longer primarily focused on taking the island part, although they have not given up on this and constantly send groups to try to secure those positions. But overall, they are more focused on holding their ground and preventing the Ukrainian defense forces from carrying out their active and effective operations.
At the same time, the Ukrainian defense forces managed to strike not only at columns of equipment but also at enemy personnel. For example, recently, Z military correspondents confirmed information from the Ukrainian armed forces that the general staff had released several days earlier. Ukrainian aviation carried out a targeted strike on an enemy concentration in the Zaporizhzhia direction and destroyed the headquarters of the occupying forces advancing there.
Ukrainian aviation smashed concentrations of Russian troops at 3 locations at once and destroyed the headquarters of Russia's 108th Battalion. This last point has been confirmed by the Z chauvinists themselves.
Given the effectiveness of the defense forces lately, which includes the daily destruction of tanks, armored combat vehicles and artillery, as well as the elimination of over 1,000 Russians just in the past day, even at the cost of such losses, they have not managed to achieve any significant success on any section of the front since the beginning of autumn.
Today marks the autumn-winter phase of this same offensive. However, the Russians have not achieved even operational tactical successes as of today. Even though the forces thrown into the infantry components on all these fronts are just insane in number, many times exceeding the number of our assault troops and infantry, yet today we see the result.
I never cease to admire the courage and heroism of Ukrainian soldiers. They are holding the front and standing up to a huge horde that vastly outnumbers them. That's why I urge you to support the armed forces of Ukraine, and if you can't do so financially, write them words of encouragement in the comments. I know they are watching us. Attention! Now we will talk about Russian war crimes and scenes of violence. According to YouTube platform rules, we cannot show all the footage, but it is impossible to ignore this material. The well-known volunteer Dennis Christoph, nicknamed the Dutchman, published a video filmed by a drone that captured yet another case of civilians being killed in Pokrovsk. Russian occupiers deliberately shot 3 civilians and wounded a young woman. It was later reported that the wounded woman was carried out by a local miner named Oleksiy, but evacuating her to the hospital is still impossible due to the activity of enemy drones. This case is just one of hundreds like it along the front line. For Russians, there is no difference between civilians and military personnel. To them, all of us Ukrainians are enemies. That's why, when you are told to evacuate during an enemy offensive, it's not a request. It's a matter of your life. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Neither Ukraine nor Russia will be able to achieve a breakthrough on the battlefield in the next 6 months. This opinion was expressed by military analyst Franz Stefan Gadi in a comment for the New York Times.
War, of course, is very unpredictable, but the front line remains fairly static. Both Russian and Ukrainian forces are unlikely to achieve a breakthrough in the next 6 months.
The analyst explained that the Russians lack the operational capabilities for a breakthrough. At the same time, in his opinion, the Ukrainian side lacks manpower. At the same time, the Kremlin stated that Russia will not halt military operations on Ukrainian territory, as proposed by US President Donald Trump. This was stated by the spokesperson for the Russian dictator Dmitry Peskov. According to Peskov, Russia's position regarding the US president's peace plan, which calls for Russian and Ukrainian forces to stop at the current front line to begin negotiations, remains unchanged. He also stated that joint work to prepare the proper conditions for a Russia-US summit in Budapest will begin in the near future.
Russia's and Putin's position on a peaceful settlement is consistent and well known. Moscow sees contradictory statements coming from Kyiv. They do not contribute to a peaceful settlement, but rather complicate the process. Russia is ready to expand cooperation with Iran in all areas. The West has no grounds for exerting excessive pressure on sovereign Iran.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump continues to assure everyone that the war will end soon. But he is certain that Putin will definitely take some part of Ukraine's territory for himself. After all, much has already been seized. But later he told journalists that he never told Zelensky to give up Donbas. what is being discussed is precisely freezing the situation. For his part, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky states that we are approaching a possible end to the war. Supposedly, right now, Donald Trump is essentially giving Putin one last chance. But this does not mean that the war will definitely end.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Reading the comments under previous episodes, I see that many of you are watching us from Kazakhstan, Moldova, Europe, and even the USA. We Ukrainians are very grateful for your support and proud to have such reasonable viewers. Let us know in the comments below which country you're watching us from and whether people there support our fight against the empire of evil. I always enjoy reading your comments, and in the meantime, we continue. Now on to the most interesting part. Russia is sharply increasing its propaganda budget. This was announced by Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sybiha. According to him, despite a reduction in military spending in the budget for 2026, funding for propaganda in Russia will increase by a record 54%.
This clearly demonstrates the priorities of the aggressor state. Since they can't win on the battlefield, they're putting their main focus on disinformation.
Personally, I'm not surprised. What else besides war propaganda would the Kremlin spare no expense on? I'm sure they won't stop there either. If there's one thing they love, it's brainwashing. Like if you agree, a mass exodus of occupiers in the Kherson direction. An unprecedented level of desertion is being recorded there. Our report covers the reasons and consequences of such a large-scale flight from the front.
A wave of desertion has swept through the Russian army. In the fourth year of the war, no one except the bunker dweller is looking for action, and no one believes in Putin or Kremlin propaganda that romanticizes the front anymore.
Stagnation. People want action.
Instead, Russian soldiers are looking for any way to escape as far as possible from the Kremlin's action in Ukraine. Thus, our partisans from the Atesh movement report a mass exodus of servicemen in the Kherson direction.
Harsh treatment by commanders, senseless assaults, and the lack of rotation are forcing soldiers to abandon their positions.
They decided to fix the situation in Putin's army in the Russian way. Instead of improving service conditions, they tightened control over the exhausted and half-starved contract soldiers, set up reinforced checkpoints and patrols in the frontline areas. The military police are conducting thorough document checks and searches in search of deserters.
Agents from among the local residents report that deserters often seize residential houses, and if discovered, they use weapons.
Moreover, Russian deserters have increasingly started taking hostages with them.
Right now, I am in a store with hostages. I have a live F1 grenade in my hand. I just want to be taken to the prosecutor's office. I will surrender at the prosecutor's office.
It was the conditions of service, the blatantly careless attitude of the command toward the lives of the personnel, and the ongoing abuse in the unit that pushed the Russian soldier to take such a radical step.
I am Konstantinov Sergei Sergeyevich, a private of the 60th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade, 9th Company, 3rd Battalion. I was forced to leave the front line while wounded, to walk away on my own, because my commander threatened to tie me to a tree overnight so that the birds would kill me, or to shoot me, since I refused to carry out a combat mission while wounded.
Punishment in the form of tying someone to a tree in open terrain is, in general, a favorite disciplinary tactic among Russians on the front line. Instead of eliminating their own contract soldiers themselves, the command simply puts the penal troops in a visible spot, where in just a few hours they are taken out by Ukrainian FPV drones.
I am a serviceman of the 25th Combined Arms Army, 67th Division, 36th Regiment, Assault Detachment. We've been handcuffed to a tree for 3 days now, without food, without water, without anything. They don't take us anywhere to use the bathroom. That's how things are.
Not everyone manages to survive even a single day in such conditions. Surviving after even more sophisticated punishments in the Russian army is much harder, says another deserter named Sergei. The 34-year-old Russian still can't believe that he actually managed to escape from the front.
We're playing all in. That's it. Your life and freedom are literally at stake. As long as the war goes on, well, they'll just erase me. There won't even be a trial.
And all because the Russian electrician who was mobilized refused to take up arms and go kill Ukrainians.
My crime is simply that I didn't want to shoot at people, that's all. The military police showed up. I told them to just go to, basically I just told them to get lost, that's it. They took me to Zaitsevo and, they electrocuted me. And the device they use to charge batteries, where you can adjust the voltage and amperage. Basically, they put one clamp, the crocodile, right on the earlobe, the other on a finger, and then they started. What?
Why give in? What want?
They didn't want anything. They just electrocuted me, poured cold water on me for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours with a hose for no reason. Procedures, special effects.
But no matter how much Russian army soldiers are intimidated in basements by their own generals, the will to live prevails. Especially since, in the case of desertion, the chances of survival are much higher than in yet another meat grinder assault. Catastrophic losses at the front are yet another reason for the mass exodus from the front lines.
Why? Because it's one failure after another there. Every third wounded soldier doesn't make it to evacuation. There are major problems there. There, the so-called offensive actions have slowed down by exactly 2 or 3 times, as reported by American analytical centers. It's a failure there.
Recently, being wounded at the front for Russian soldiers has become equivalent to being killed, according to military analysts. Russian medics simply leave their own wounded to die at their positions. The situations with evacuating the wounded are simply catastrophic, say partisans in the Russian rear as well. The command of some units deliberately does not send transport or evacuation teams for wounded soldiers, condemning them to a long and painful death.
Due to the lack of vehicles and evacuation orders, the occupiers die within the first day after being wounded. Many of them could have survived with timely medical assistance. Officers of these units openly state that it is easier to find new people than to risk equipment. This is direct evidence that the Russian Army Command considers its soldiers expendable.
But this expendable resource also tends to run out, just like the money to maintain it. The Kremlin's treasury is empty. There is no money left to pay endless death benefits and, more importantly, signing bonuses for contracts with the Ministry of Defense for the aggressor country. As a result, the authorities in at least 8 regions of Russia have reduced one-time payments several times over, in Taganrog, Chuvashia, and Samara Oblast. There, the amount has been reduced from 3 or 2 million to just 800,000 rubles.
This is an avalanche that has started. Putin has no money. Putin no longer has the means to directly provide money and maintain what has become a mercenary army.
No money means no fools willing to die at the front, analysts explain. Recruitment offices across the border have long been unable to meet the Kremlin's targets. No tricks work anymore.
That's crony capitalism for you. It's all about siphoning off the cash. That's the formula right now. People profit from the war while the population eventually loses its initiative and
along with it, the desire to go to the front. But the desire to get away from that very front, and as quickly as possible, for any amount of money, just keeps growing. Which means that the Russian army will soon face a much larger wave of desertion.
Meanwhile, by the end of the year, South Korea will deploy the world's most powerful non-nuclear missile, the Hyunmoo-5. This was reported by Defense Blog, citing the words of the country's Minister of Defense. The publication, citing the official, writes that the simultaneous launch of 15 to 20 such missiles could cause even more destruction than the effect of tactical nuclear weapons. Defense Blog reports that this South Korean medium-range ballistic missile weighs about 36 tons, with a warhead weighing 8 to 9 tons. Visually, the missile is 15 to 16 meters long and is designed to strike underground targets, command centers, missile nuclear bases, and other fortified structures. According to official data, the missile has a range of over 3,000 kilometers. It is known that South Korea intends to install the Hyunmoo system on a strike missile ship. It will be interesting to see how North Korea responds now. What new developments will they showcase in return? Russian drones have reached Spain for the first time. According to local media, an unidentified drone was spotted in Spain for the first time, which led to a temporary shutdown of the airport on the island of Mallorca. According to one of Spain's largest radio stations, Onda Cero, incoming flights were halted for about 35 minutes. After security checks were carried out, flights resumed and the airport returned to normal operations. Overall, the incident caused delays and the rerouting of several planes. A total of 8 flights were unable to land in Palma due to the detection of the drone. Spanish police have launched an investigation. They are trying to determine exactly where the drone entered the airspace and who was operating it. Meanwhile, Russian hackers have posted documents from 8 British military bases online, as well as the personal data of their employees and internal cybersecurity instructions. This was reported by the Daily Mail newspaper. The UK Ministry of Defence told journalists that they are investigating the incident. According to the publication, hackers from the Lynx Group attacked the Ministry of Defense contractor DoD Group, which is involved in the construction and maintenance of military facilities. The hackers demanded a ransom under the threat of publishing confidential information and began uploading the stolen documents online. Among the leaked documents are layouts of Royal Air Force bases where nuclear weapons are stored, where American F-35 fighter jets are stationed, the main drone base, an ultra-secret radar station, as well as information about naval bases and an Air Force base in the south of the UK.
Professor Anthony Glees, a security and defense expert from the University of Buckingham, told the Mail on Sunday, "This is a huge gap in national security. And it's two-sided because it's not only about data of enormous importance to the enemies and potential enemies of the UK, but also because it's embarrassing for the UK's allies, particularly the United States. Lynx is believed to be based in Russia and openly recruits staff on Russian-language underground forums. In line with the practices of many Moscow-based cyber-criminal groups, it avoids attacking organizations in former Soviet Union countries." Confirming the cyber incident, a DoD Group spokesperson stated that limited data had been stolen, and the company secured and restored our systems.
What do you think Russia is really planning? Are the drone incident in Spain and the hacker attack in the UK connected? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll definitely read them. Hungarians with dual citizenship were registering in Germany as Ukrainian refugees to receive aid. According to the publication Welt, hundreds of such cases have been recorded over the past 2 years. The migration services of the federal state of Baden-Württemberg noticed that many of them do not speak Ukrainian, but use Hungarian or require an interpreter. Other states are reporting similar cases. From May 2023 to October 2025, more than 9,640 suspicious incidents have been recorded. Of these, 568 people have Hungarian citizenship.
However, as EU citizens, they are not entitled to temporary protection or to the social assistance that Ukrainian refugees receive. As explained by Peter Balog, a research fellow at Eötvös Loránd University, since 2010, the Hungarian authorities have been issuing passports to Hungarians and Roma in Zakarpattia.
What an irony. While Orbán openly mocks Ukrainians, calling us beggars from the third world, it seems that money doesn't smell for Hungarians, even if it comes through dual citizenship schemes. Meanwhile, in Russia, everything is as usual. Footage has appeared online showing Russians expressing outrage over deportation restrictions from Estonia and Latvia. For example, in this video, there's the story of a woman who was expelled from Latvia. Listen for yourself.
What nonsense! It's just a disgrace! Just expelling Russian people. But for what? For saying that they're against it. Against stupidity, against the demolition of monuments to the Great Patriotic War. How can you react to this?
Latvia continues its Russophobic policy. They keep throwing out, there's no other word for it, Russian-speaking people from the country. And not just those who disagree with the government's policy, but basically everyone.
Things are different there now. The people there are different. They've become different in how they're organized.
Poor unfortunate Russians. Everyone is pressuring them, deporting them, and yet, as always, they're innocent, pure as snow, and not to blame for anything. That's how it was, and that's how it will be. And what do you think about this kind of whining from Russians abroad? Write your thoughts, don't hold back in the comments. And now, our and your favorite segment, Beyond the Poor Brick. The deputy governor of the Volgograd region, where a prohibition law was introduced, got drunk himself and got into a fight in St. Petersburg. Media reports say that a drunken Ivan Inozemtsev fought with a businessman from Pskov and a resident of St. Petersburg in one of the establishments. All three were intoxicated. The most interesting part is that in his own region, Inozemtsev is responsible for public safety and the prevention of offenses. According to the Russian telegram channel Baza, after some time, officers from the National Guard and the Patrol Service detained the Vologda official, the businessman from Pskov, and the resident of St. Petersburg. All of them were charged with petty hooliganism and showed signs of intoxication. And now comes the real shock content. Cringeworthy gifts, Russian style. Just listen to this. In Yakutia, a mother of many children was given an apartment flooded with sewage. Yes, you heard that right. The TV channel Yakutia 24 did a story about this single mother. The woman says that her house burned down, and in return, the Department of Housing Relations offered her and her children a 2-room municipal apartment in a home for orphans. However, the new apartment turned out to be flooded with sewage due to a utility accident. The Yakut woman also showed footage of the new apartment she was given. See for yourself.
We're on the first floor. We walked in and were stunned. As soon as we opened the door, there was this toilet smell. The smell, to put it bluntly. We opened it, and on the floor we couldn't figure out what it was. We turned on the light, and it turned out that sewage was spread all over the apartment. I can understand if it was only in the bathroom or the toilet. But it was all over the apartment, in the big room, in the small room. How is this even possible? And everything is turned off. And it's been like this for a long time. That is, the smell has already seeped into the walls.
And here's a bit more absurdity from the great power. The story of an occupier who, after 3 years of assaults in the so-called special military operation, now sleeps in the bushes at Moscow's Kievsky railway station.
And today at Kievsky railway station, I'll be presenting the segment, The Story of Our Ward, for you. Look at these people. Today, I'll tell you how they ended up on the street and what you can do to help us. Tell me, please, I have a question for you. How do you live? What happened in your life? Why are you here?
I served in the assaults for 3 years. I get a pension of 8,200. It's very little, and I sleep right here in the bushes. Right here.
You don't have a place to live?
No, I don't have a place to live. No, I do have one. I bought one for my wife and one for my son. I sleep on the street. Yeah, that's how I live.
And you eat whatever help you get?
Yeah, of course. I always come here to this place and eat whatever delicious food they give me.
Well, what else? Tomorrow they'll forget, and again they'll say that they never abandoned their own. How do you like our news? Write to us about what we should change to become better. We will definitely take it into account. And in the meantime, give this video a like to support what we do. And be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss the next episodes. See you!